Millionaire husband defends mistress and insults his pregnant wife. Heartbroken wife demands divorce. Scarlett Parker never expected her fairy tale marriage to turn into a living nightmare. She was pregnant with her first child, thinking her husband, Adrian Parker, was the man of her dreams, a dashing millionaire whose wealth and prestige dazzled everyone in Riverdale. But behind the opulent mansion doors, hidden from the paparazzi flashes and whispered rumors, a betrayal brewed. One sultry evening, Scarlett discovered Adrian was defending another woman, a seductive mistress named Vera Sinclair. The pain of watching her husband insult her in favor of that mistress shattered Scarlett's heart and set the stage for a breathtaking, real-life drama that would change them all forever. Scarlett Parker was born in a humble setting on the outskirts of Manchester. Her parents, Elizabeth and Peter Parker, had labored tirelessly for years, saving every spare penny in the hope of giving their only daughter a chance at a better life. Their modest home had squeaky floorboards that groaned under footsteps and peeling wallpaper that threatened to fall off at any moment. Yet, there was always love to go around. On her 20th birthday, Scarlett decided to venture beyond her small hometown. Fueled by a dream of achieving something extraordinary, she enrolled in a prestigious fashion design course at a local college. It was there that she met Adrian Parker. The irony of sharing a surname was not lost on her. Though they were unrelated, the coincidence often sparked playful jokes. Adrian, tall and strikingly handsome, exuded an air of confidence that drew every gaze in the room. Scarlett's first impression of Adrian was that he belonged to a different world entirely. He wore perfectly tailored suits that emphasized his broad shoulders, walked with a certain grace like he knew he controlled every situation and always seemed to have a phone glued to his ear. Word around campus was that Adrian was a wealthy entrepreneur juggling business deals and philanthropic ventures. His father, the late Richard Parker, had been a giant in the tech industry, and Adrian was determined to honor the family name. An unexpected twist of fate, one too perfect to be anything less than destiny, brought them together. As part of a college fundraiser, Scarlett's fashion club hosted an evening gala. She showcased her latest designs, hoping to make enough money for a scholarship. Adrian, attending as an honorary guest, admired her creativity and drive. He was captivated by her kindness as much as her beauty. That night, they exchanged phone numbers amid the elegant glow of chandeliers, champagne flutes, and a soft violin melody in the background. Their love story felt like a fairy tale, endless bouquets of roses, candlelight dinners at five-star restaurants, spontaneous weekend trips to European cities. Adrian introduced Scarlett to the luxuries he had grown up with, and although she felt somewhat out of place among the affluent crowd, she was overwhelmed by how graciously he treated her. By the time he proposed in front of the Eiffel Tower, the answer was obvious: yes. They married 3 months later in a lavish ceremony at the Parker family estate. The grandeur of the day overshadowed the tears of joy in Scarlett's eyes, her mother's proud smile, and Adrian's unwavering devotion. In that moment, she believed she had found her forever, a man who would love her until the end of time. After the wedding, Scarlett and Adrian's life accelerated at an even more breathtaking pace. While some newlyweds focused on adjusting to marital routines, Adrian was busy finalizing deals across multiple continents. The Parker empire seemed unstoppable, branching out from software developments to luxury real estate investments. In Riverdale, a charming city peppered with old money mansions and aspiring socialites, Adrian purchased a sprawling estate known as the Glendale Mansion. It was rumored to be worth over $40 million, towering above the surrounding properties with its elegant neoclassical facade, meticulously manicured gardens, and an entrance hall boasting a marble staircase that curved like a grand piano. The house had a storied history, having belonged to well-known aristocrats, including Lady Rosalind Whitman and the Countess of Este. Glendale Mansion became their primary residence, with Scarlett dedicating her time to transforming the once elegant estate into a modern paradise. She poured her heart into the interior design, selecting plush carpets, elegant crystal chandeliers, and art pieces from local artists in Manchester and beyond. Adrian seldom had the time to dwell on these details. His schedule was consumed by constant travel, board meetings, and philanthropic events. Despite the glitz and glamour, Scarlett felt lonely in this massive home, echoing with emptiness when Adrian was away. Still, she filled her days productively. She began designing a modest clothing line, determined to follow her passion for fashion. The brand was called Belle Marie, and it targeted women who appreciated quality without sacrificing comfort. With Adrian's financial support, she secured a small shop downtown, ensuring a stable platform to showcase her designs. Under normal circumstances, she would have been content with her husband's unwavering generosity. But a creeping sense of unease occasionally gnawed at her, especially on the nights. Adrian failed to return her phone calls with coherent explanations. It wasn't that she had concrete proof he was straying. Adrian's phone was always busy, but that was typical for a man of his status. Photographs on social media often showed him at business gatherings or charity galas, smiling diplomatically next to accomplished CEOs and politicians. At first, these pictures were reassuring. She took them as evidence of his professional commitments. But there were also photos of him laughing with glamorous women. Those images, though harmless at a glance, made Scarlett's heart sink. She tried to dismiss the knot in her stomach as paranoia. And so their relationship continued, overshadowed by an unspoken tension. Scarlett willed herself to trust Adrian, believing him to be the man. She married someone devoted, honorable, and full of love. Yet, behind her forced smiles at lavish charity balls and glitzy business dinners, she started to feel like an outsider in her own life. The luxurious glow began to dull, replaced by a haunting question: was she truly enough for Adrian Parker? A year into her marriage, Scarlett received the news that she was pregnant. She discovered this at a routine doctor's appointment after suspecting something was off due to persistent fatigue and dizzy spells. The test results left her in disbelief. She recalled staring at the small strip in her trembling hands, tears rolling down her cheeks. Scarred by the growing distance in her marriage, the possibility of a new life ignited a hope she desperately clung to. When she told Adrian, her heart pounded like a drum in her chest. She expected him to be overwhelmed with excitement, perhaps even to sweep her off her feet with a joyous twirl. Instead, his expression was subdued. He smiled, yes, but there was a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Perhaps it was simply shock, she reasoned, or the stress of his never-ending business deals. In the weeks that followed, Scarlett attempted to involve Adrian in every step of the journey. She booked an ultrasound appointment, eager to share the first images of their child. Adrian promised to be there, but on the day of the scan, a sudden crisis at his Manhattan firm forced him to reschedule. Apology after apology flooded Scarlett's phone via text messages. Rationally, she knew emergencies happened. Emotionally, she felt the ache of disappointment. Elizabeth Parker, Scarlett's mother, was elated at the thought of becoming a grandmother. She often visited Glendale Mansion, bringing home cooked meals and fluttering around Scarlett, making sure her daughter took care of herself. Their closeness provided a comforting reminder of the unconditional support that had shaped Scarlett's upbringing. Adrian's mother, Margaret Parker, however, was far less hands-on. Margaret existed in the realm of high society, gracefully drifting from extravagant parties to exclusive clubs. She expressed polite excitement whenever Scarlett mentioned the baby, but it was always overshadowed by Margaret's talk of philanthropic balls and upcoming visits to the French Riviera. Despite these complexities, Scarlett embraced her pregnancy wholeheartedly. She made lifestyle changes, refusing champagne at social gatherings and focusing on healthier meals. She would rest her hands on her growing belly and imagine her child's future, how she would teach them to be kind, resourceful, and above all, empathetic. She daydreamed about the laughter-filling Glendale mansion, brushing aside her lingering anxieties over Adrian's coldness. She had faith that the arrival of their baby would repair the frayed edges of their marriage. Even as she sensed the ocean-wide distance between them, she prayed that her baby's heartbeat would become the metronome that recalibrated their relationship. Little did she know, fate had other plans. Adrian's business operations had expanded exponentially, requiring frequent travel to major cities, London, New York, Paris, and sometimes Hong Kong. He often spoke of forging global partnerships and exploring new markets, but his constant absences left Scarlett feeling more like a distant relative than a wife. Around this time, a swirl of gossip took root. A few acquaintances from the Riverdale social circle whispered that Adrian had been seen in intimate settings with a woman named Vera Sinclair. Vera was a celebrated interior designer from Spain, known for her striking features: olive skin, cascading dark hair, and a disarming smile that made people forget their reservations. Her designs were modern yet infused with classical Spanish elements, securing her a prominent spot among the international elite. Scarlett caught wind of these rumors during an afternoon brunch hosted by her friend Cassandra Mills, whose father, Matthew Mills, was a business partner of Adrian. Cassandra lowered her voice and, after ensuring no eavesdroppers lingered nearby, said, "I don't want to worry you, but I've heard that Adrian was seen with Vera last week. They seemed cozy." Scarlett felt her heart drop. She confronted Adrian that evening over dinner, her voice shaky with suppressed distress. Adrian brushed aside her concerns, calling them unfounded and baseless gossip. He insisted that Vera was merely a colleague, someone he was collaborating with on a new resort project in Barcelona. Scarlett wanted to believe him. Even though alarm bells rang in her mind, she willed herself to find comfort in his explanation. Yet the rumors didn't stop. Pictures surfaced online, grainy, paparazzi-style shots of Adrian and Vera leaving a Michelin-starred restaurant in Paris. Their body language told a more intimate story, one that fueled countless tabloid headlines. Riverdale's high society circles buzzed with speculation. Was Adrian Parker having an affair? Scarlett spent nights scrolling through these headlines, reading cruel comments that often blamed her for not being glamorous enough to keep Adrian's attention. The stress took a toll on her health. She felt the baby kick within her womb, as if protesting the turmoil that raged in her heart. Consumed by doubt, she tried in vain to reach out to Adrian for comfort. His responses remained evasive, always cloaked in half-baked excuses. She considered confronting Vera directly but hesitated, partly out of fear, partly because she still wanted to trust her husband. After all, they had a child on the way. Would he betray her like this at such a crucial time? In her darkest moments, Scarlett recalled how she and Adrian had once radiated genuine love. As she lay awake in their massive bed, her gaze fixed on his empty side, she wondered if love alone could shield her from the secrets that threatened to tear them apart. When Adrian finally returned from one of his business trips, Scarlett seized the opportunity to discuss the rumors. She intercepted him by the foyer of Glendale Mansion, determined not to let him escape to his study or bedroom without giving her some answers. With tears brimming in her eyes, she presented the tabloids, their headlines screaming about a possible affair. Adrian glanced at the tabloids, then tossed them aside. His face twisted into a scowl, and he snapped, "These are lies fabricated to create scandal." How many times do I have to repeat myself, Scarlett? Then why haven't you been home? Why do you never return my calls? Scarlett pleaded, her voice breaking. I'm pregnant, Adrian. I need you. Adrian's gaze wavered momentarily, but instead of softening, he hardened. I have a lot on my plate. If you can't handle the heat of being my wife, maybe you need to step back and let me handle business without these childish accusations. The words stung her like a cold slap. She'd never heard him speak so callously. Gone was the gentleman who once wrote her love notes and serenaded her with guitar melodies on late summer nights. Standing before her was a ruthless businessman, self-assured in his power. In that moment, Scarlett felt an unfamiliar anger surge within her, stronger than any she'd felt before. She demanded to see his phone, to verify for herself if there were any messages from Vera. Adrian refused, calling the request an insult to his privacy. Their heated exchange escalated until Margaret Parker, who had been wandering in the hallway, hurried in. "What on earth is going on?" she demanded. "You're shouting loud enough to wake the dead." Scarlett's cheeks burned with shame. She turned away, blinking back tears. Adrian, however, stood rigid, chest heaving. Margaret attempted to mediate, insisting that outsiders would use this drama to tarnish the Parker name. Her primary concern was the family's image, not Scarlett's feelings. The conversation ended with no resolution, and Scarlett retreated to her bedroom, feeling more alone than ever. That night, she felt the baby move again, a tiny foot pressing against her ribcage. The sensation reminded her of the life growing inside her, an anchor to hold on to in this swirling storm of accusations and denial. She vowed to protect that life at all costs, even if it meant confronting a harsh truth she'd been desperate to avoid. Days turned into weeks, and the tension within Glendale Mansion grew thicker. Adrian, more distant than ever, was rarely home. When he was around, he seemed perpetually lost in furious phone calls or locked away in his study, ignoring Scarlett's attempts at conversation. Scarlett's turning point arrived one afternoon when she received an anonymous text message containing a short video clip. In it, Adrian and Vera were captured in a compromising position on the balcony of a posh hotel suite, murmuring quietly while holding each other too close to be mere acquaintances. The clip lasted only a few seconds, but it was undeniable proof of a deeper relationship. Her heart hammered as she replayed the video. She swallowed back a rising wave of nausea that wasn't just due to her pregnancy. Every fluttering hope she had harbored about Adrian's innocence disintegrated before her eyes. She realized she couldn't keep lying to herself. Her husband was having an affair. Trembling with adrenaline, Scarlett printed the still frames and confronted Adrian. She cornered him in his study, her hands gripping the incriminating images. "Explain this," she demanded, tossing the pictures onto his mahogany desk. Adrian's jaw twitched. He stared at the evidence, silent, with tears streaming down her cheeks. Scarlett pressed on. "All those nights you were away. You were with her." Still, Adrian offered no defense. Finally, he exhaled sharply, as if annoyed. "Fine," he said. "I won't lie anymore. Vera and I, WERE involved." Silence enveloped the room, broken only by the hammering of Scarlett's heart. She felt a mix of rage and despair. "I'm pregnant with your child, Adrian. How could you do this?" He raised a dismissive hand. "Don't start. You knew what my life entailed. Constant travel, networking with the world's elite. It's not my fault if you can't keep up. And Vera, she understands me in ways you never could." His words sliced through Scarlett's chest. She staggered back, needing the edge of a nearby table to steady herself. The final blow came when Adrian added, in a voice cold as ice, "You're so wrapped up in your petty insecurities, you're suffocating me. I need a woman who appreciates my ambitions, not one who nags me with nonsense." In that instant, Scarlett realized how deep the betrayal ran. Her tears dried into an icy resolve. Adrian wasn't even apologetic. He was openly defending Vera, and in the face of her heartbreak, he was insulting her, the woman carrying his child. She left the study without a word, adrenaline pumping through her veins like white, hot lava. The marriage she once cherished had officially shattered, and all that remained were jagged shards of betrayal she would have to navigate alone. 2 days after the confrontation, Scarlett was sitting in the drawing room, staring blankly at the flickering flames in the fireplace. A sudden commotion at the front entrance pulled her from her thoughts. She could hear the muffled voices of staff, a high-pitched female voice, and then footsteps clacking across the marble floors. When she stood up to investigate, she saw Vera Sinclair herself, standing in Glendale Mansion's grand foyer. Dressed in a sleek designer coat and sky-high heels, Vera's dark hair cascaded over her shoulders with effortless glamour. Scarlett felt her blood run cold. Vera spotted Scarlett and offered a patronizing smirk. "Scarlett, darling, I'm sorry to intrude, but Adrian asked me to help him finalize some decor plans for a new project," she said, her voice laced with faux politeness. Scarlett's throat tightened. She struggled to maintain composure, but her fury was evident. "He told you to come here? To my home?" Vera lifted one elegantly manicured hand. "I understand this might be uncomfortable, but it's strictly business. No need to be hostile." Scarlett glared at her, words caught in her chest. She fought the impulse to scream, aware that staff members lingered within earshot, drawn to the tension. She couldn't fathom the sheer audacity of this woman, casually appearing in her home as though she belonged there. Moments later, Adrian emerged from his study, his face devoid of guilt. "Vera, you're here," he said warmly. "Let's go to the West Wing. I want to show you some potential areas for renovation." He barely acknowledged Scarlett, as if she were an insignificant bystander in her own marriage. Vera trotted off by his side, their shoulders brushing in a way that made Scarlett's stomach churn. Left alone, Scarlett tried to steady her trembling hands. The staff pretended not to notice the tears brimming in her eyes. In a haze of disbelief, she retreated to her bedroom, locking the door behind her. She slid down against it, knees drawn to her chest, as sobs racked her body. This was a new low. Adrian had brought his mistress into the very sanctuary that was supposed to be Scarlett's safe place. The question that haunted her now was whether she could endure any more of this humiliating spectacle, or would she finally muster the strength to walk away? The next morning, Elizabeth Parker visited her daughter at Glendale Mansion. She noticed Scarlett's puffy eyes and the dark circles beneath them. Anxiety riddled Scarlett's face, and her movements were slow, as though she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" Elizabeth asked, gently cupping Scarlett's cheek. Scarlett hesitated at first, but eventually broke down, recounting the entire ordeal: Adrian's affair, his cold insults, Vera's brazen intrusion. Elizabeth listened in horror, tears welling in her own eyes at the pain her daughter was enduring. Without hesitation, Elizabeth insisted they involve someone else. That someone was Maria Sullivan, Scarlett's childhood friend and now a legal advisor for a renowned law firm. Maria had always been the rock Scarlett leaned on during their younger years, offering level-headed counsel and unwavering support. After a quick phone call, Maria arrived at Glendale Mansion that afternoon. A petite woman with sharp eyes and a commanding presence, Maria wasted no time. She asked Scarlett a series of questions about finances, property ownership, and any existing prenups. It turned out Adrian had never asked Scarlett to sign a prenup. Interesting, Maria mused, scribbling notes in a leather-bound notebook. As they gathered in the sunlit sitting room, Maria laid out possible legal strategies, including spousal support, custody arrangements, and a settlement should Scarlett decide to file for divorce. Elizabeth, sitting on the edge of her seat, realized the gravity of this conversation. "Are we sure we're ready for that step?" Elizabeth asked, looking to her daughter. Scarlett took a shaky breath. Deep down, she felt her love for Adrian flicker like a dying candle. There was still a part of her that wanted to believe he might show remorse and return to his senses. But the unwavering resolve in Maria's eyes told her that a backup plan was essential. "I'm not ready to file yet," Scarlett admitted, "but I can't just stand by and let them trample over me. I need to protect my child myself." Maria nodded, her expression both empathetic and firm. "Understood. Let's proceed by gathering as much evidence as possible, especially regarding Adrian's affair and any financial misconduct. The more information we have, the stronger your position will be if you do decide to file." Scarlett agreed. Although she felt conflicted, a spark of empowerment ignited within her. For the first time in weeks, she sensed a glimmer of hope. She wasn't alone. She had her mother and a trusted friend by her side. Later that day, after Maria left, Elizabeth held Scarlett's hands. "Whatever happens, darling, I'm here for you. Don't ever doubt that." Scarlett blinked back tears. It was a fragile alliance, but one that fortified her weary spirit. She realized that despite the heartbreak, she had a support system ready to help her navigate whatever storms lay ahead. If there was one thing Riverdale thrived on, it was scandal. Whispers about Adrian Parker's affair turned into headlines splashed across local tabloids. The new wave of gossip soared to dizzying heights when a local paparazzo, none other than Tommy White, managed to snap several photographs of Adrian and Vera, hand in hand, arriving at a luxury resort in the French countryside. When the photographs hit the front pages, Glendale Mansion was besieged by reporters and tabloid writers desperate for a statement. Cameramen camped outside the tall iron gates, shouting questions at every passing car. The once peaceful estate felt like a besieged fortress. Scarlett found herself in the crosshairs of the media frenzy. Journalists speculated on her reaction and whether she'd remain loyal or seek revenge. She received dozens of interview requests, each offering considerable sums if she would tell her story. She refused them all, unwilling to air her private heartbreak in public. Adrian, meanwhile, seemed unbothered by the negative attention. He had faced public relations challenges before and had a seasoned PR team to manage crises like this. His statement to the press was dismissive, calling the allegations exaggerated and urging everyone to respect his privacy. However, he didn't categorically deny Vera's presence in his life. The tabloids pounced on Scarlett's pregnancy, painting a tragic picture of the wronged wife carrying her husband's heir while he gallivanted around with his mistress. Dramatic headlines screamed, "Millionaire's love triangle," and "Pregnant wife abandoned for stunning mistress." Scarlett's phone buzzed constantly with calls from people she barely knew, old classmates, distant relatives offering condolences or searching for more juicy details. Emotionally drained, Scarlett retreated from public view, staying within the opulent yet suffocating confines of Glendale Mansion. When she ventured out for prenatal checkups, she wore sunglasses and a scarf, attempting to disguise herself. The stress took a toll on her health. Her doctor warned her to prioritize rest and caution against the relentless media storm. In the face of it all, Adrian continued his daily routines, whisking Vera in and out of Glendale Mansion under the guise of design consultations. Scarlett watched, stunned, as staff members loyal to their paychecks carried on as though Vera was a legitimate part of Adrian's life. It was a nightmare she couldn't wake from, her every breath a reminder of her diminishing role in her husband's world. In the darkest hours of the night, Scarlett clutched her growing belly, whispering promises of safety and love to the unborn child who had no choice but to inherit this maelstrom. She vowed that whatever path she chose, it would be one that shielded her child from the toxic environment blossoming around them. One evening, as the media frenzy showed no signs of abating, Scarlett received an unexpected visitor, Margaret Parker, Adrian's mother. The older woman was ushered into Scarlett's private sitting room, where the younger woman sat poised on a velvet sofa, bracing for a confrontation. Margaret's gaze scanned the room, lingering on the scattered tabloids and stacks of unopened letters. She let out a soft sigh and lowered herself into an armchair opposite Scarlett. "I've come to talk," she said gently. Scarlett straightened. "About Adrian." Margaret hesitated, her usually impeccable composure faltering for a moment. "Yes," she admitted. "I am deeply concerned about this situation. Our family's reputation is one thing, but I can see you're in pain, my dear. And you're carrying my grandchild." This show of empathy from Margaret was new. In the past, she had been polite but distant, always more interested in charity galas than her son's personal life. Now, her voice was tinged with regret. "Adrian has always been ambitious, driven to a fault," Margaret continued. "His father was the same. Often, they believe their power and success grant them the right to do as they please." Scarlett felt tears prick at her eyes. "I don't know what to do anymore. I'm trying to hold everything together for the baby, but Adrian treats me like I'm nothing." Margaret's lips pressed into a thin line. "I will not excuse Adrian's behavior. It's despicable. However, I want you to know that if you decide to leave him, you won't do so alone." Surprised, Scarlett leaned forward. "You'd support me? In whatever you choose," Margaret replied, her eyes shining with a sincerity Scarlett hadn't seen before. "I've seen too many women suffer in silence, in the name of maintaining outward respectability. I won't allow that to happen to you, not while you're carrying my grandchild." They sat in heavy silence for a moment, the ornate clock on the mantel ticking away the seconds. For the first time since the scandal erupted, Scarlett felt a measure of comfort. Though it was bittersweet, Margaret's tentative support gave her strength. As Margaret prepared to leave, she placed a comforting hand on Scarlett's shoulder. "I may not have always shown it, but I do care about you, Scarlett, and I care about that little one more than you know. Don't hesitate to reach out." Long after Margaret left, Scarlett remained in the sitting room, her mind churning with possible scenarios. Knowing that even Adrian's mother disapproved of his actions validated her feelings. In a world that had turned against her, she had found an unlikely ally. While Scarlett grappled with her next move, Vera Sinclair grew more brazen. She appeared at more public events alongside Adrian, fueling gossip columns that thrived on the scandal's every twist. She even accompanied him to a charity gala in London, where they were photographed waltzing together. Scarlett, who saw the pictures splashed across social media, felt her heart clench in anger and hurt. The stark contrast between Vera's bold presence and Scarlett's forced retreat was undeniable. The paparazzi painted Vera as the new darling of high society, overshadowing Scarlett entirely. One afternoon, Cassandra Mills, Scarlett's loyal friend, paid her a visit. Cassandra brought a bouquet of fresh lilies and the latest edition of a high-end gossip magazine. "I wanted you to see this before it blindsided you," she said softly, flipping open to a feature story titled "The New Power Couple, Adrian Parker and Vera Sinclair." The article, written by a well-known society journalist, glorified Vera's design prowess while lightly acknowledging Adrian's wife, who was described as in the background, quietly expecting their child. The narrative was cruel, painting Scarlett as a forgettable accessory to Adrian's whirlwind romance with Vera. Scarlett's hands trembled as she closed the magazine. "They're treating me like I don't exist," she murmured, voice thick with unshed tears. Cassandra wrapped an arm around her shoulder. "You have to speak up, Scarlett. Defend yourself. Don't let them rewrite your story." But Scarlett was hesitant. She feared that any public statement would escalate the media frenzy. She was also painfully aware of her fragile emotional state, balancing pregnancy and heartbreak in equal measure. She chose silence, at least for the moment, hoping to protect herself and her unborn child from further stress. Yet Vera was unrelenting. She started posting photos on social media, some of them taken in the living areas of Glendale Mansion that Scarlett herself had painstakingly decorated. Through carefully posed images, Vera implied that she was an integral part of Adrian's life, both personally and professionally. Scarlett felt cornered, watched, and disrespected in her own home. She realized that ignoring Vera's provocations only emboldened the mistress to become more daring. Each time, Scarlett walked down a corridor and passed one of Vera's new decor installments, flowers in elaborate vases or modern sculptures that clashed with the mansion's classic aesthetic, she was reminded of her diminishing authority. "I won't let her take everything," Scarlett whispered to herself late one night, her hand protectively cradling her belly. "I refuse to be erased from my own life." While Vera reveled in her newfound spotlight, Adrian's empire began to show signs of strain. The scandal had put him under increased scrutiny, raising questions about his judgment and leadership. A series of minor legal hiccups and costly project delays led some investors to second-guess their commitment to Parker Enterprises. Adrian's phone calls became more urgent. He spent hours locked in his study, yelling at board members and issuing threats to underperforming teams. Headlines about his business woes replaced the earlier gossip about his affair, although the latter still simmered in the background. Surprisingly, these professional setbacks stoked Adrian's resentment towards Scarlett further. In his twisted logic, her presence, her heartbreak, was a source of unwanted emotional baggage that diverted his focus from repairing his business reputation. He began taking out his frustrations on her in cutting remarks whenever they crossed paths in the mansion. One evening, after an especially harrowing day of meetings, Adrian walked into the dining room, where Scarlett and Elizabeth were quietly sharing a meal. His expression was stormy, and he glared at Scarlett. "So, I see you're enjoying dinner while I'm out there trying to salvage our family's company," he sneered. "How very supportive of you." Elizabeth stiffened. "Adrian, that's uncalled for. Scarlett is carrying your child, and you're the one who—" Adrian waved off her words impatiently. "Don't lecture me, Elizabeth. I'm dealing with enough." He fixed his gaze on Scarlett. "Your silence might feel like power, but it's actually making everything worse. Investors are wondering if our family is stable or if my wife is some naive, clingy woman who can't handle reality." Scarlett's eyes welled with tears, but she refused to cry in front of him. She took a moment to steady her trembling voice. "It's not my job to fix the mess you created. You brought Vera into our marriage, into our home. You humiliated me, Adrian. Now you want me to do damage control for the sake of your business?" He slammed his fist on the table, making the dishes rattle. "Don't you dare guilt-trip me." Elizabeth stood, placing a protective hand on Scarlett's shoulder. "That's enough, Adrian." But Adrian turned on his heel, stalking away without another word. The echo of his heavy footsteps lingered long after he was gone. Left behind, Elizabeth tried to console Scarlett, but her daughter's composure finally shattered. She sobbed into her mother's arms, the crushing weight of betrayal and public scandal slicing through the last threads of optimism. A storm was brewing in Adrian Parker's world, one that threatened not only his marriage but his entire legacy. And Scarlett, caught in the tempest, had to decide whether to cling to the sinking ship or finally set herself free. Days turned into weeks, and Scarlett discovered, much to her surprise, moments of small reprieve in her routine. She began focusing on tasks that brought her a sense of autonomy. She spent hours refining her Belle Marie clothing line, a creative outlet that allowed her to momentarily forget the swirl of drama around her. During one of her design sessions at the downtown boutique, Scarlett met an unlikely confidant, Oliver Hayes, a talented photographer who had done a few promotional shoots for Belle Marie. He had a warm demeanor and a knack for offering genuine compliments without crossing professional boundaries. Oliver noticed her weary expression and asked gently, "You okay, Scarlett? You seem a bit distant today." Initially, she brushed him off, but as the afternoon wore on and they worked closely together, Scarlett found herself opening up. She didn't spill all the details, but she hinted at the stress and heartbreak in her personal life. Oliver listened with empathy, offering words of encouragement without prying too deeply. Their discussions became an unexpected source of solace. He shared stories of his own hardships, growing up in foster care, struggling to finance his photography career. His resilience inspired Scarlett. If Oliver could carve out a life of artistry and warmth despite a challenging upbringing, maybe she too could find the strength to rebuild her life. Leaving the boutique that evening, Scarlett felt a small spark of hope. She realized there were good people out there who saw her for who she was, not just as Adrian Parker's wife. That night, she sketched new designs with renewed vigor. Instead of focusing on haute couture pieces that mirrored Adrian's world, she drew flowing, comfortable garments that symbolized freedom and inner strength. She imagined them draping over a woman's body, accentuating her resilience rather than just her curves. For the first time in months, she went to bed with a tentative smile. The baby inside her kicked gently, almost in approval. It was a subtle reminder that while her marriage might be crumbling, her own identity could still flourish. Late one evening, while Adrian was away, presumably with Vera, Scarlett stood in the quiet study. He rarely let her enter. The door was ajar, and curiosity nudged her inside. She found herself surrounded by towering shelves of business books, files stacked in neat piles, and a mahogany desk organized with meticulous precision. Something about the room felt suffocating, almost as if it carried the echoes of Adrian's arrogance. She approached the desk, drawn to a laptop that was still open. A flash drive lay beside it, labeled simply with the letter V. Scarlett hesitated. It was one thing to suspect wrongdoing, another to intrude on Adrian's privacy. But the humiliations, the lies, the insults, none of it was private anymore. She had a right to know what else he was hiding, especially with their unborn child's future at stake. Heart pounding, she inserted the flash drive into the laptop. Immediately, a folder named Project Vera appeared. Inside, she discovered an array of documents related not just to interior design projects, but massive real estate deals in Vera's name. According to these files, Adrian was funneling considerable amounts of money into properties overseas, listing Vera as a co-owner. A chill settled over Scarlett as she clicked through spreadsheets detailing the financial transactions. The sums involved were astronomical enough to suggest that Adrian was setting up a future life with Vera, possibly outside the country. The betrayal cut even deeper now that it extended to financial deceit. Her hands trembled on the laptop's keyboard. She copied the entire folder, transferring the files onto her phone as evidence. If there was any lingering doubt about whether Adrian intended to replace her, these documents erased it. She snapped the laptop shut and pocketed the flash drive. Then, she turned off the study lights and closed the door behind her. Each step back to her bedroom felt heavier, laden with the knowledge that Adrian was not just an adulterer, but also a traitor to their marital vows, using his wealth to anchor himself to Vera in a way he once promised only to Scarlett. Clutching her belly, Scarlett resolved that this was the final straw. She had tolerated emotional abuse, humiliation, and public shame. But she would not stand by while Adrian plotted a future that excluded her and their child. In that moment, she decided that if Adrian wouldn't protect their family, she would, whatever it took. Nerves on edge, Scarlett reached out to Maria Sullivan first thing the next morning. She arranged a discreet meeting at Maria's law office downtown, away from the prying eyes of staff and reporters. Elizabeth joined her for moral support, standing steadfast as Scarlett explained the gravity of her discovery. Maria's eyes widened when she perused the documents Scarlett had copied. "These aren't just minor transactions," she said, tone serious. "We're talking about significant sums in offshore accounts. It looks like Adrian's planning something big, possibly a complete exit strategy." Scarlett swallowed hard. "And he's not including me or our child. Whatever he's planning, it's for Vera." Maria nodded grimly. "Legally, you're entitled to a portion of his assets, and if there are joint properties, you have rights. But we need to move carefully. If we confront him too soon, he might try to hide or dissipate assets." Elizabeth, who had been silent, spoke up. "Scarlett, you can't let him get away with this. The man is openly cheating and funneling money to another woman. It's despicable." Scarlett's face hardened. "Then let's give him an ultimatum. I want a legal separation at least, with terms that protect me and my child. If he refuses, I'll file for divorce immediately." Maria looked at Scarlett. "Are you ready for that? A separation or a divorce will be a high-profile scandal, no doubt. The media will pounce." A flicker of fear crossed Scarlett's features, but she straightened her spine. "There's already a scandal. I'm done worrying about what people think. I have to do what's best for my child and me." They spent the next hour outlining the demands and discussing strategies to ensure Adrian couldn't wiggle out of his obligations. By the time they concluded, Scarlett had a clearer vision. She was prepared to confront Adrian head-on. Exiting the law office, Scarlett clutched a manila folder containing the proposed separation agreement. She took a deep breath, eyes focused on the horizon. This was the path she had chosen, to stand up for herself, to protect her unborn baby, and to refuse to be a silent victim in Adrian Parker's twisted game. Later that evening, Scarlett requested that Adrian meet her in the mansion's formal library. He arrived with an air of casual arrogance, loosening his tie as he walked in. Vera was nowhere in sight, and for once, Scarlett was grateful for the privacy. She wasted no time presenting the separation agreement. Adrian glanced at the manila folder and scoffed. "What's this supposed to be?" Scarlett's voice was steady. "A proposed legal separation. It details financial support, custody arrangements once the baby is born, and the division of assets. Take a look." Adrian froze. His brow furrowed and his knuckles turned white against the edge of the document. "You're out of your mind if you think I'm signing this." Scarlett stepped forward, refusing to back down. "No, Adrian, I'm just claiming what I'm entitled to. You can't keep humiliating me, funneling money to Vera, and expect me to stand by." He threw the document onto a nearby table. "You've been snooping in my accounts?" She narrowed her eyes. "Yes, I found out everything your offshore accounts, the properties co-owned with Vera." Adrian's face twisted in rage, but he took a moment before speaking. "So you've decided to corner me? Fine. You want to fight dirty? We'll fight dirty. Don't forget I have the best lawyers money can buy. You'll walk away with scraps." Scarlett's hand trembled slightly, but she willed herself to remain calm. "You think I'm afraid? Go ahead. Let's see what the courts say about adultery, hidden assets, and a pregnant wife you've endangered with stress." Adrian glared at her, jaw set. "I won't be bullied, Scarlett. You can't ruin my business or my reputation. Your reputation is already in tatters," she cut in, her voice slicing through his. "And as for your business, it's on shaky ground. Investors are losing confidence. Don't blame that on me." He took a step toward her, chest heaving in fury. "You have no idea what I'm capable of. I made you, Scarlett. Don't ever forget that." Her heart pounded, but she stood her ground. "You didn't make me. I was someone before you, and I'll be someone after you. Sign the papers, or I swear I'll file for divorce and take this to court." and I won't go easy on you." For a moment, they locked eyes, the tension palpable. Adrian finally scoffed and stormed out, slamming the library door behind him. Scarlett stood there alone, breathing heavily, tears brimming in her eyes. But beneath the fear, she felt a stirring of triumph. She had confronted the man who once held every ounce of power in their relationship. The future was uncertain, but at least she had reclaimed her voice. Word of the potential separation leaked out, perhaps from Adrian's legal team or disgruntled employees. Suddenly, new articles popped up online, speculating about the final nail in the coffin for the Parker marriage. Riverdale's social scene became a powder keg of gossip, with each new tidbit fueling endless debates over who was truly at fault. Vera, for her part, remained defiantly by Adrian's side in public. She attended a glitzy art exhibition in Milan with him, posing for pictures that soon flooded Instagram and the tabloids. She wore a smug smile in most of them, as if reveling in her role as the woman who had toppled Scarlett. Inside Glendale Mansion, the atmosphere was poisonous. Adrian barely spoke to Scarlett, communicating only through abrupt text messages about practical matters, household expenses, upcoming medical appointments. Tension rippled through the household staff, who found themselves caught between loyalty to Adrian and sympathy for Scarlett. Most opted for neutrality, unsure how to navigate the swirling currents of betrayal. Margaret Parker made another appearance, this time confronting her son directly. Shouts erupted from Adrian's study, with Margaret accusing him of dragging the Parker name through the mud and recklessly endangering his child's future. Adrian's angry retorts echoed off the walls. It was a battle of words Scarlett didn't have the energy to witness. Meanwhile, Maria Sullivan increased her vigilance, advising Scarlett to minimize contact with Adrian and gather more evidence of financial misconduct. There was even talk of a forensic accountant to track every asset Adrian attempted to hide. The plan was simple. If Adrian refused to sign the separation agreement, they would wage a full-scale legal war. One night, Scarlett overheard Adrian on a phone call with Vera, complaining bitterly about Scarlett's theatrics. His words stung, but they also clarified his mindset. He wasn't going to bend easily, and neither was Vera. In the midst of this chaos, Scarlett had one guiding light, the growing life within her. Each prenatal checkup reminded her that she had a more important responsibility than preserving a broken marriage. She needed stability and peace for herself and for the child who deserved so much better than this. With the separation negotiations at a stalemate, Adrian attempted a new strategy. He reached out to some of Scarlett's closest friends, particularly those from wealthy circles, trying to paint her as the one who was overreacting. He offered them lavish gifts, VIP invitations, and exclusive investment opportunities, hoping to sway public opinion against Scarlett. When this underhanded tactic failed, Cassandra Mills made it quite clear she had no interest in his bribes. Adrian resorted to intimidation. Scarlett began receiving anonymous threats via text messages, implying that if she continued her legal pursuits, private details about her life might be leaked. Maria immediately responded by alerting law enforcement, although they could do little without concrete evidence linking the threats to Adrian. Nevertheless, a sense of unease loomed over Scarlett. She installed additional security measures at Glendale Mansion, but the property's staff were still loyal to Adrian, complicating her efforts to feel truly safe. One late night, unable to sleep, Scarlett wandered into the mansion's garden. She found solace in the moonlit paths and the gentle hum of cicadas. As she walked by the marble fountain, she felt the baby move again, a soft flutter against her ribs. Tears welled in her eyes. She whispered, "I'm so sorry," her voice cracking. "You deserve so much better than this." In that moment, She realized that fear had consumed her every waking thought, but she also recognized that living in fear was no way to raise a child. She needed to make a decisive move, one that would break the shackles of Adrian's intimidation. Returning to the house, she dialed Maria's number. It was close to midnight, but Maria answered on the first ring, her voice laced with concern. "I'm filing for divorce," Scarlett said, the words tumbling out before she could second-guess herself. "I can't live like this anymore." Maria sighed. "I support you, Scarlett. I'll prepare the paperwork first thing in the morning." Scarlett thanked her, then hung up. A strange calm settled over her. Filing for divorce would unleash a tidal wave of drama, but it was the only way she could see a future free from Adrian's manipulations and Vera's humiliations. She cradled her belly, leaning against the garden's stone archway. Perhaps in the end, this heartbreak was the price for discovering her own strength, and she was finally ready to pay it. The next day, Maria officially filed the divorce papers on Scarlett's behalf. News of this legal step spread like wildfire through Riverdale. Suddenly, the scandal had a definitive endpoint. People began picking sides more openly, some blaming Scarlett for abandoning her husband during a tough time, others celebrating her decision to break free. Meanwhile, Adrian was livid. He stormed into Glendale Mansion that evening, ignoring the staff who tried to announce his presence. He found Scarlett in the living room, her lawyer Maria by her side. "You actually filed for divorce?" he shouted, his face flushed with rage. "You have no idea the consequences of this." Maria stood, offering a calm yet stern gaze. "Adrian, I'm here as Scarlett's legal counsel. This divorce is happening whether you like it or not. You can either cooperate or make things worse." Adrian glared at Maria, then turned his wrath to Scarlett. "Is this what you really want? Destroying this family, our legacy?" Scarlett's eyes sparkled with unshed tears, but her voice was resolute. "You destroyed our family the moment you decided to parade your mistress around and insult me. I'm done playing the victim." He snatched the divorce papers from Maria's hands, scanning through them. 50% of my assets? Are you insane? And child support, spousal support. That's what the law entitles her to, Maria interjected coldly. Adrian threw the papers to the floor. "You're a gold digger, Scarlett. That's all you ever were." Scarlett flinched, but then she steadied herself. "You know that's not true. I loved you. I gave up everything, my dreams, my peace of mind to stand beside you. You threw it all away for Vera, and now you're paying the price." Silence gripped the room, tension crackling like electricity. Finally, Adrian spoke in a hoarse whisper. "If you do this, you'll regret it. I promise you that." Scarlett locked eyes with him. "No, Adrian. My only regret is loving someone who could hurt me this deeply." Adrian's shoulders sagged as he looked around, realizing for the first time that he was truly alone. Margaret Parker stood in the doorway, silently observing, tears in her eyes. He turned to his mother, perhaps seeking support, but she simply shook her head. "I can't defend you anymore," Margaret said softly. Adrian let out a bitter laugh, stepping back like a caged animal. Without another word, he stormed out of the mansion, leaving the divorce papers lying crumpled on the floor. For Scarlett, it felt like a final goodbye, a moment where the lines were drawn irrevocably. Whatever came next, she would face it head-on, with her unborn child and her unwavering sense of self as her guiding lights. The divorce proceedings were grueling, stretching over several months. Adrian fought fiercely at first, trying to shield his assets and cast doubt on Scarlett's character. But the evidence Maria compiled Adrian's affair, his financial maneuvering proved damning. When faced with the possibility of full-scale legal exposure, Adrian agreed to a settlement. Scarlett was awarded a fair share of Adrian's assets, enabling her to maintain a comfortable lifestyle for herself and the baby. Glendale Mansion was sold, its storied halls echoing with ghosts of what once was. Scarlett chose to move into a more modest but cozy home in a tranquil neighborhood. Vera disappeared from the public eye once it became clear Adrian's finances had taken a significant hit, especially after some of his investors backed out. Rumor had it she moved back to Spain to chase new opportunities, leaving Adrian to face the fallout of his crumbling empire alone. As for Scarlett, she found new joy in her Belle Marie clothing line. Freed from the stifling constraints of her broken marriage, her creativity soared. She introduced a maternity line that quickly gained popularity, drawing on her personal experience as an expectant mother. Support from close friends like Cassandra, Oliver, and her mother Elizabeth fueled her journey toward emotional healing. In time, she even opened up to the possibility of new love, though cautiously. Her priority remained her child, a bright-eyed little girl named Aurora Grace Parker, born on a rainy spring afternoon that felt oddly like the start of a glorious new season. Standing in her boutique 1 year later, cradling Aurora in her arms, Scarlett glanced at a newspaper article recapping the Parker scandal. She felt a wave of relief wash over her. She'd come so far from a heartbroken wife trapped in a nightmare to a resilient mother forging her own path. The love and respect she had once sought from Adrian, she now found within herself. And as she kissed Aurora's forehead, she silently thanked the storm for helping her discover her true strength. Thank you for watching this heart-wrenching tale of betrayal, resilience, and a mother's unwavering fight for her child's future. Scarlett Parker's journey shows how even the deepest wounds can pave the way to newfound strength and independence. In facing an unfaithful millionaire husband who insulted her and dismissed her pregnancy, Scarlett refused to be crushed. Instead, she took control of her destiny, reclaiming her identity and forging a path to freedom. If you found yourself captivated by Scarlett's courage and inspired by her determination, please support this story by liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. Your engagement helps us continue to bring powerful, dramatic stories to life, tales that remind us that hope and strength can emerge from even the darkest moments. Together, let's celebrate resilience and remember, no one has the right to dim your light. Stay strong and stay tuned for more.